part of what makes it hold together. And that's really sad. It's a sad history in this country, but unfortunately it's living history because it keeps going on because we never want to be honest. We never want to be honest about what's really going on. And when you have sad reminders and tragedies like Charleston, South Carolina, unfortunately to me, the conversations go all kinds of different ways, except to the heart of the issue. Here's one thing I'm going to say. What I did like what I saw immediately when it happened, like Rob Lowe.
Yes. Stewart.
Jon Stewart. Who jumps right on everything. I'm sure Bill Maher is right there.
Bill Maher is right on it.
Called media to the carpet and said it took more than 3 hours for any real media outlet to get to Charleston, South Carolina to start reporting on this. But yet when you have things that happen
in Baltimore,
or, and what happened obviously in Missouri with Michael Brown, the media was on it because it was black people behaving badly. But the minute you have somebody out of context, and they knew instantly that this was what they said, a hate crime. They knew it instantly. They backed away from it because you know what? They wanted to make sure they researched all their facts and got it together before they started talking about the perpetrator of the crime. So we're not going to loosely report on this. We want to make sure we know a bit more about the guy who's guilty of this before we go in because you don't want to paint a picture of something inappropriately, at least for certain groups
and
of
then
people.
have to retract that.
Exactly.
And then have to retract
it. So, kudos to the likes of Rob Lowe and Jon Stewart for jumping on it and saying, you know what? You should be ashamed of yourself that you didn't get on this immediately because this was breaking news.
Yes.
But they wanted to know more about who Dylan Roof was before they decided to jump into, this heavy conversation. It's a racial conversation. It needs to be had. And here's my thing. If you have no problem talking about the Holocaust, which is done and over with, but you have a problem talking about a real issue in this country that is festering day by day,
every day,
then we're just lying to ourselves. And I'll be honest, there is no solution to this. It's going to be here until the third rock from the sun no longer is here.
Absolutely. We
can do better, though. We can be honest. But until we're willing to have these real conversations, for all the people who said that Eric Holder, who stepped down as the Attorney General, his conversation was inappropriate, talking about race, and people who want to demonize President Obama for talking about race, all those congressmen who thought it was so wrong, shame on you, because when you don't talk about something, it doesn't go away.
It doesn't go away.
You can't sweep this under the rug.
Exactly.
We've been sweeping this on the rug for 200 plus years. And guess what? What's under the rug now? It's such a big hump.
It's a pile.
It's a pile.
You got to walk around it now.
Right. You can't even see over the top of it. You can't ignore it anymore. And I think it's crazy that we have to have things like this to really be able to talk about it. So when Starbucks tried to have the conversation, when there was
when it was nothing happening.
Well, no, it was what was going on obviously in Missouri with Michael Brown. They thought, but look, we need to start talking about some stuff here. People just absolutely tore into them and said how ridiculously stupid that it was. To me, it was being socially responsible.
Yes,
but yet nobody wanted to talk about it. We're going to start talking.
You don't want that with your coffee. You can't have that with your coffee. You don't want to talk about race in your coffee in the morning.
What better goes with coffee than candid conversation?
I'm saying,
but I'm saying is this. I didn't like the barista side of it, but I like the cup thing. Start the conversation. They could have had conversations in the cafe, like Janet Jackson said. Maybe you had local groups come in and start conversations. Maybe you had Starbucks going to college campuses and bringing the coffee and talking with the future of our country. Maybe getting them to understand you're that catalyst for change, because these old yahoos over here, it's not going to happen.
It's not happening.
It's not happening.
They're set in their ways, and then they're not changing.
People, we got to talk about it, and it doesn't matter how you feel about it. It has to be talked about.
Yes.
So the good thing is, once we come back for our next break, we're going to have a guest on the show, Jay Coyton Palmer, who is a freelance reporter. He was born and raised in Chatham.
It's time to get busy. Live from the smooth studio. To the Maya AKAI Show.
You have my undivided attention.
Streaming worldwide at Live 365. iHeartRadio.com. Listen via Sirius Channel 432. Watch and listen at WGSJBC.com.
Maestro, if you please.
The Maya AKAI Show. Radio never looked so good.
Introducing Bounty Double Quilted. Each sheet is quilted once, then quilted again, making it the strongest two-ply paper towel. And there are twice as many sheets on a roll. More sheets that can do more jobs than you ever thought possible. New Bounty Double Quilted. There's a word for people who exercise every day and always eat exactly what they should. Liar. Do something good for yourself. Lean Cuisine. It's not just lean, it's cuisine. My child has quite an imagination. Her teachers say that someday she'll be doing great things. Right now, she's already an architect, a designer, an engineer. I think she's a creative genius. And thanks to Legos, the creative building toy, there's just no limit to what she can do. Legos, the creative diversion that helps develop a child's potential. So with low fares available on AA.com, isn't it time to get away together? American Airlines. I am not a size. I am not a stereotype. I want workout clothes that fit who I am. Champion Woman is a complete line of sports bras and activewear from sizes 14 to 28, designed to fit a real woman, like me.
You crying, brother, brother, brother. There's far too many of you dying. You know we've got to find a way to bring some loving here today. Father, Father, we don't need to escalate. Oh, not answer, for only love can conquer. You know we've got to find a way to bring some loving. Oh, yeah, yeah. Take it lights, take it sight, punish me with brutality. Talk to me, honey, so you can see what's going on. What's going on? Hey, what's going on? Tell me what's going on. Woo! Come on, man. Woo! Baby.
Welcome back to the Maya Kai Show here on Smooth 90.5 FM HD Radio, or maybe you're listening very serious XM channel 432. And of course, we are streaming live via Live 365 and iHeartRadio.com. So many ways to listen as well as watch. You can go to the station website, www.wgsjbcradio.com, to watch and listen, or click and listen. It's kind of like interactive. Just go right there. You can click and hear myself and Nikki Brayton.
Look at me.
All right, so we are into the second hour of the show. We're going until noon today. And if you want to get involved in the conversation, you can, 708-223-0030, or just get social with the show. That's the easy thing to do. Go to the Maya AKAI Show via Facebook and Twitter, and you can post comments to the things that are posted there. If you want to talk directly with Nikki, you can.
Nikki Brayton on Facebook. I'm also on Twitter.
Just type Nikki Brayton and voila, there she is. Make sure you give her a friend request. We got to get her friend weight up.
I'm not gonna check.
It's starting to happen. Well, so before we went to the break, we were talking about, you know, the fabric of this country and how racism has always been a real issue that's been swept under the rug, and nobody wants to talk about it until we have unfortunate situations like what happened in Charleston, South Carolina. And the media was slow to respond to this, and it enraged many people. It enraged many people because it was being labeled as a hate crime. Some people feel like it's domestic terrorism. So to help us get a bit more of the backdrop about Charleston, South Carolina, I have J. Colin Palmer, who is a freelance reporter. He was born and raised right here in Chicago in Chatham. He's a graduate of Luther South. He got his BAS from Chicago State in African American Studies and a minor in psychology. So he's definitely going to have some good insight on this. But he's been a freelance reporter since 1999. He's written for The Final Call, The Citizen, and currently he's a contributing writer for the Chicago Crusader newspaper. So without further ado, welcome to the show. I would call you Jay, but I'm going to call you Jason with your mother name. How you doing this morning, Jason?
I'm doing pretty good.
Welcome, Jason.
All right, so give us some backdrop about this story that is so tragic with 9 people being dead. And I think I heard another person is now actually deceased as well, so it's up to 10. But give us a backdrop to the story of what happened in Charleston, South Carolina.
Well, Charleston, South Carolina, in order to give a kind of a backdrop of what happened here, you have to understand about Charleston, South Carolina itself. You know, I'm born and raised here in Chicago, but both my mother and father are from Charleston. So I have a lot of family there. I'm actually boarding a plane today to go down to Charleston for a wedding that I had already pre-planned. So I'm just going to happen to be down there. But Charleston has, you know, a lot of people don't know, it was the biggest slave port in the United States during times of slavery. And at one point in its history, there were actually more African slaves in the city of Charleston than there were white residents. So there's always been this dynamic between the races down in Charleston. It's always been a scene of uprisings. You know, you're starting to hear it now a little bit in the mainstream media about Denmark Vesey. He was a freed slave who attempted to lead a major slave rebellion in 1822. His plan was to kill all the white people basically in Charleston and their masters and children, burn the city to the ground, escape to the docks, and take boats to Haiti for freedom. So Charleston, because of that type of history, has always been rather harsh on black people. It's, you know, we know Chicago is very segregated. Charleston is very similar. It's very segregated when you get down there. Black people live on one part of town, white people live on another part of town, and there are a few areas where everyone is living together. So that's kind of the context of it. You know, Mr. Vesey, he was attempting to lead the slave rebellion, and they met at Emmanuel AME Church, which is where this shooting took place. So you have to understand that historical context because after he failed the rebellion attempt, the whites in the city burned that church completely down to the ground. It was then rebuilt, and ever since it's been very involved in civil rights and human rights for African American people. Now, this individual who committed this heinous crime a couple of days ago, we don't know if he understood the history of this church, if he actually researched it before he was carrying out his plan. I would not be surprised if that's something that comes out here in the future. But basically, this guy just picked this church. He went in there. He acted like he wanted to be part of the Bible study, and, you know, about 45 minutes after he entered, he just started unloading on the people who were in there.
And his name is Dylan Roof. And
his name is Dylan Roof, 21 years old. He's actually from South Carolina. He's from the Columbia, South Carolina area, which is the capital of South Carolina. It's about probably a 2-hour drive from Charleston.
Okay.
So he doesn't, at the time, he wasn't even living in Charleston. So what's interesting is all this unfolds. You have the governor of South Carolina, Nikki Haley, who obviously has to address the media, has to address the state, has to address the nation to talk about this. And she says that she literally is just appalled that this would happen, and people were criticizing it because she's standing in front of the Confederate flag. But to me, I mean, obviously having family there, and you're saying it's as segregated as Chicago is it surprising something like this could have unfolded, or did people just kind of live in separate worlds and just didn't interact this way? I mean, is it that shocking that something like this would happen there?
Well, it's still shocking because of the heinousness of the crime itself. But you mentioned something very important. You know, the Confederate flag still flies over South Carolina.
And many southern
states,
actually.
It was only until a few years ago that they actually stopped flying it over the state capital.
Yes.
But that in and of itself was a long fight. So what they do now, it's a separate building which the Confederate flag flies over. So that is the background of this state, and that's kind of what we're talking about when you say the culture of a state or the climate. it's a racist climate in South Carolina. There's no way you can get around that, and they have not ever really dealt with that. But I'll tell you this, just from having family there and being down there, Charleston has the same problems that Chicago has. For example, let's look at our public schools. The issue with the charter schools that we're having up here is the exact same issue that they're dealing with down in Charleston right now. The taking out of certain educational programs in black schools that we have up here in Chicago. The same thing that they're going through in Charleston.